The first thing I do in the morning is drink 1 liter, or half a liter, well, I should say a pint of water. And I take my medicine, I do my prayers, and then I make up my bed. I was taught as a little girl to always, not sometime, I don't care what time you get up in the morning, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, make up your bed. The first thing you do in the morning, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. So my prayers and my devotion is very important and very meaningful to me. My prayer is every day, Lord, I lay all my plans at your feet to be carried out or denied. So whatever goes on during the day, if it's not according to my plan, but the Lord changes it, I accept it. Praying and asking the Lord to guide my footsteps in the way he guides them, I accept it. And even though sometimes the steps are difficult, but I accept them because I feel like it's a preparation for eternal life. You don't climb a mountain. You don't climb a mountain just because it's smooth. If it was smooth, you could never get to the top. You have to have the ridges, you have to have the layers of complexity so that, hey, you can make it to the top. You can't allow Satan to invade your territory to the extent that he takes over. You have to say, get behind me, Satan. If the Lord is allowing this, he's allowing it for a reason. So I accept the reason. If I knew the end from the beginning, I wouldn't want it any other way. My name is Ruth Burnette. I was born in the city of Chicago, Illinois, better known as the Windy City. I was born 3548 Wentworth Avenue, September the 26th, 1928. Even though I was born during the Depression, I had probably no knowledge of the Depression because I was the 6th child, and by that time my parents, especially my father, had developed a career of being a salesman. My father sold cold in the winter and ice in the summer. My mother's name was Victoria Curry. She was born in Tillitoby, Mississippi. Her parents owned a grocery store. And as far as you could see, land to the east, to the west, to the north, to south. Now, how my grandparents became affluent, I don't know, except at 11 years old, my parents sent us to Mississippi to spend the summer with our grandparents. While there, my grandparents said if the war started, we would have to stay. In the meantime, my father came about school time, September, right before Labor Day. So my father came the last of August and took us home. Well, the war started in December 7, 1941.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
I was born on 3548 Wentworth Avenue, which was just a few blocks from the White Sox baseball team. When they had baseball games, my brothers parked cars. People would park their cars in our yard and on the street and would give my brothers and sisters, mostly my brothers, money. We moved from 35th in Wentworth to 95th in Wentworth, which was way out, what they call Lilydale. And most of our friends said we were plumb Nelly, plumb out of the city and nearly out of the state, because we lived so far from our friends. But in 1943, my parents moved to Cassopolis, Michigan, on a farm of 80 acres. My choice of going to college at Oakwood was a carryover of high school, because our senior years, most seniors get a chance to go visit. And we visited Oakwood. We were 6 in our class. And we came down and spent the weekend at Oakwood, and we met other girls and boys that were from other states that were here for that weekend. And so it was a determining factor that you go back to Oakwood, because you met some wonderful people. I have still been in touch with my college sweetheart that I met 69 years ago. Benito Hodge was my first of all, he was my campus brother. And when he broke up with his girlfriend, I was the consoling factor in his life, because he was so brokenhearted. And in taking these 2 classes with him, Fundamental Music and Daniel and Revelation, we got to be really, really good friends. And knowing that he was coming out of this sorrowful mood of losing his girlfriend, one day he said to me, he said, "You know, I think I found somebody." And I said, "Oh, really?" And so in the next couple of classes, he said to me, "I'll tell you who it is." So I said, "Okay." And after that, he said it was me. Well, I had formed a very good friendship with him. And I wanted to say to most people, be a friend first and then become lovers later. I lived in Irvin Hall. That was the girls' dorm. I had 4 roommates. The end of the hall that I lived in, we call California room, Chicago room, Ohio room, and then the mixed room. The Chicago room was full. Of course, California had their friends, Ohio had their friends. And being in the room with people from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Kentucky, my friendship to this day is with Marion Bassett, who now lives in Los Angeles. But my dearest friend, Barbara Maxwell, Corbin Barker, passed away August of 2016. So I have really some lasting friends that I have developed and cherished to this day. In May of 1947, I went back to Chicago, and because of finances, my father had come down with Parkinson's disease, and money was short. So I decided to stay in Chicago and go to school. But while I was going to school, I started working at Montgomery Ward. And my oldest brother, Hayward Bland, took a trip to California. While he was out there, he went through Los Angeles and decided to buy some property. So he bought 4 units. Well, when he came back, we were all excited, about having property in California. But in November, when he and his wife were supposed to move to California, she decided she wasn't going. So he called me up the day before Thanksgiving and said, "Would you like to go to California?" Well, California had always been a dream, but never a reality. But that day, November, became a reality. We took a truck and a car to Los Angeles. My brother stayed there a few months, but his business didn't sell in Chicago, so he came back and left me there. But in the meantime, I had another brother that lived in Los Angeles, Elmore, and he came and lived with me in this 6-room house. Well, he was going with a young lady that lived with her cousin. And I was introduced to the roommate. And we went to concerts, we went to plays, and the fellowship developed. And in developing a friendship, I fell in love with another man. Benito was my first love. Arthur was my second love. Their birthdays were 2 days apart. They had so much in common. They both sang. They were handsome men. They dressed exquisitely. And before you know it, Benito was in New York and Arthur was in Los Angeles. And the saying is, absent makes the heart grow either fonder or yonder. And so in August 1, 1948, Arthur and I married. In that marriage, I had 2 children. What I'd like to say about that marriage is, even though Arthur was like 8 years older than I was, and I was sort of, I was really new at everything, but he was a kind, loving, and giving young man. And our lives blended together because he was a Christian and I was. And the secret of that relationship that lasted for 36 years was we never quit courting. We never quit courting. And I loved him more when he passed than I did when I married him. When Leon was about 3 years old, one day I saw a car that was $500. And I said to my husband, "Oh, I found something." And he said, "What?" I said, "A car, and it's $500. And he looked at me and he says, "What?" And I thought, well, $500 wasn't bad. He said, "Do you think I would put you and my child in a second-hand car?" Well, from that day forward, every car that Honey ever bought me was brand new. But the last car that he bought in June of 1984, as sick as he was, he said, "I'm going to buy you a car." Well, I already had a Mark V Lincoln. I didn't need a car. But he was the type of man that he could not do enough for you. And I guess it was the same because I could not do enough for him. And so on Friday, my two daughters, Sandra and Yolanda, went with us to the Cadillac dealer on Wilshire Boulevard. And every car he looked at, he said, no, no, no. So the man said, we have another car lot. So he took us to another car lot. And way down there, he saw this car. Yellow has always been a favorite color of mine. My house has been yellow. My kitchen's been yellow. My bedroom's been yellow. My Buick's been yellow. But the Cadillac, the Lincoln that I had, was gold brown. So he wanted me to have this car. So on a Friday, we went and bought this car. The car was a Burnette Cadillac, but it didn't have a skylight. So that day he told him, he said, I want a skylight. So he took it and they put the skylight in and we picked it up on Monday. And I kept that car for 11 years. We started our family, well, before I started the family, I had 2 miscarriages. And when I got pregnant with the son that I have today, I was bedridden for 7.5 months. Being bedridden was the only way that I could hold that child. So, I was in the bed. Honey could not cook. He was not a cook. But he would bring the food and stuff to the bed. The chuck roast, putting the onions and the garlic and the seasoning, making the cornbread, everything was brought to the bed. And for 7.5 months, because my family was in Michigan and in Chicago, I had no family. So we worked it out, where I would stay in the bed day and night while Honey worked, had good neighbors, had met some friends, but we worked it out where finally, May 18th, 1951, Leon was born in White Memorial Hospital. And about 5 years later, Yolanda was born in Linwood Hospital. But along the way, I accumulated another daughter. My son was married to Sandra, who was from Columbus, Ohio. And the child was so much like me. She liked so many things. She did so many things. We thought so much alike that I always told her mother, I said, you birthed her, but she's mine. She is mine. She is mine. And to make a long story short, when her biological mother passed away in Columbus, Ohio, Sandra asked me, would I be her mother? Well, of course, Leon is saying, are you saying now she's my sister? Whatever you want to say. Yes, she's your sister. She's your ex-wife. Now she's my sister. Because by this time, Leon had remarried. And to this day, Sandra owns me as her mother, tells everybody, and people that don't know me or know the situation, they say, oh no, Ruth only had 2 children. She's not, I said, she's mine and you can't take her away. And people to this day will say, Sandra's mother. And now she lives with me. Traveling has been such a joy in my life. And I have to give credit to my mother. When we were little children in Chicago, everything that was free in Chicago, my parents took us to. We went to the zoo, we went to Grand Park, we went to Riverdale, we went everywhere. In 1968, I put a 3-week tour together for Hawaii. So actually my travels have taken me around the world, and about out of the 50 states, I've been to about 30 of them. My departure from Los Angeles to Huntsville is a very interesting, because I never thought, it never entered into my psychic that I would leave Los Angeles. But one Friday night, I had to crawl to the bathroom. It was Labor Day weekend. That Sabbath, I got up and I went to church. But coming home from church, or at home, my son Leon called, and of course the conversation was, "How are you?" And I said, I don't remember just what I said, but whatever I said, he said, "No, you're not okay." And I said, "Yeah, I am. I went to church." He said, "But something's wrong." And I said, finally I said, I had to crawl to the bathroom. And he said, "You have to move." "Move where?" He said, "Huntsville." I said, "Alabama?" In April, I decided to come to Alumni Weekend in Huntsville, Alabama. So I prayed about it. I said, "Now, Lord, if you want me to move to Alabama, Huntsville, find me a house that I really like." So in the meantime, I went back to Los Angeles, and I came back down here for a family reunion, and I bought some property. I bought some land because I'm going to have this house built. I could not buy that house because the people were waiting to move in it. But he said, "I'll build you one." So 4 lots down, I found this lot and built the house. Having lost my husband in 1984, I cried for 2.5 years. But during that process, I did a lot of reading and I did a lot of praying. And when I saw the results of how the Lord strengthened me during the day, because many times I could hardly get the key in the door because I was full. And my employees would say to the customers, "Oh, she's fine." And I would say, if they only knew. But I would be strong at work. But I had so much to be thankful for that when I finished crying, you know you can't cry forever. So when you finish crying, then you got a chance to reflect on. I didn't have to worry about, I had 5 vehicles when my husband died, so I didn't have to worry about a car. I didn't have to worry about a house. I didn't have to worry about money. The only thing that was bothering me was the loss of my husband. My only desire at this point in my life is that me, my children, my grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will so live and so dedicate their life that we will spend eternity together. And that's it. That's it. the Lord called me today, if He called me today, all I want Him to say is, well done. You've been a good and faithful servant. Enter now into the joys of my life.